Okay. So as you can see, it does capture quite a bit of detail. A lot of even the thin trees, the branches, the foliage on top. This was using a OS 128, so you basically have a 45-degree field of view. So you're not getting as tall of a scan, but I think we actually did tilt the LiDAR so that we try to catch some of the canopy as well. Okay. And so traditionally, what would happen is that for this type of scan, you would use more of total station or basically you set up a LiDAR scanner, set some markers around you, set it and then have a scan. So the process takes probably for an equivalent space 30 minutes, I think traditionally using more of the traditional tools. In this case here, again, this is like a 2.5 minute, 3 minute scan. And so the trade-off here is just convenience. You're gonna get a little bit more noise than like a total station or like a scanner. But for a lot of cases where you're just trying to make estimates of biomass, more than sufficient. You're getting enough resolution to make valid estimates here. Okay, as you can see, scanning. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's look at, so these were more the mapping applications. Let's take a look at localization. So this is an example I showed you earlier, the static screen where it was a scan of a garage starting on the roof, kind of going down, and then into the lower level and back up. And I'll share, we'll share, I think we should have shared all the data for you, so you can actually run through these as well. So you can grab it and test it yourself and kind of follow along video. So in this instance here, I won't do a dense scan. I'll actually go into preview mode because I wouldn't care about, I may care about the map later on, but when I'm actually driving around, I actually do want to get a nice preview of what's being scanned. At the same time, I want a real-time feedback in terms of my trajectory. So I'll just run it in the preview mode. Again, just a reminder of the preview mode. You're using a larger voxel size, and yeah, I think that's the biggest difference here. Okay. Right. And in this scan here, one of the things I do want to cover is that you did see a little bit of a pause in the beginning where there was no movement. And so what that does, I'll let this run, but stationary IMU initialization, for this case is set to false, but you can also set it to true, which means that you're telling the system that you kind of started in a stationary position, you kind of held that position so that the IMU had a chance to calibrate itself, or the system had a chance to calibrate itself, and then started motion. And that helps with just cleaning up a lot of the noise that you get from the IMU as well. But in this case here, for vehicle motion, it's a very well-defined motion, so we wouldn't have needed that as much. So as you can see, right? So we started on the upper level here. We traversed all the way down a ramp, and you can see us capture the lower level ramp and then come back up the ramp. And this will be done in real time, so you know exactly where your position is. So cases for use cases like where you need to have precise tracking of a vehicle, autonomous driving, valet parking type of experiences, that this is the solution that you would actually use. Okay. And again, if you have GPS, you'd get an absolute position. In this case here, we didn't have GPS, but the position or the trajectory was spot on. We had some ground truth comparison, and it's very close. Okay. Alrighty. And then finally, one last example. I think we looked at an office, we looked at a forest example, we looked at a driving example. This is more of street, neighborhood type of example. Okay, and this time, I can use a preview mode. Okay. And I think you saw a snapshot earlier with this. It's basically a walk through the neighborhood. So you'll capture a lot of the details and the trajectory of movement, as you can see. For example, if you're doing a delivery robot or something, this is basically running on the sidewalk through the street and then back. So if you have mapped a certain service area, then you would run it in localization mode only, and then so you wouldn't be capturing any more of the map, but you'd be using the localization information only to know exactly where your vehicle is within the neighborhood or delivery region. Yeah, and so yeah, these were basically some of I guess the most reoccurring, the most common use cases that we've seen. A lot of the parameters that you can tweak for this, and I think based on the highlight that I had before, you can kind of play around with it to see how well it works for your environment. And then we're here so that you can actually send us questions. We can help you, give you advice in terms of how to set up the Lidar, settings that you should use for certain environments and use cases and so on. Let's see. I'll go back to the slides. Okay. Yep. So in summary, so we kind of walked through a lot of stuff here, and I think you'll probably have to go back and look at both the accompanying documentation and maybe the video again, just to capture some of the details about what we covered. The highlights here, basically opening up new features for the evaluation, where we're utilizing the built-in IMU of the oscillator sensor to kind of help with making cleaner scans, reducing motion artifacts, and so on. I did not show you the reflectivity data, but it's basically as you save a PLY, all the reflectivity data that we collected through the Lidar, through the oscillator Lidar, it's basically saved into the PLY. So if you open up, for example, a street scan of roads, you'll basically see a lot of the ground signs and street signs kind of light up really well. And then covered a whole bunch of parameters that you should tweak or you can tweak. And introduce, actually, let me just introduce that format. Okay. sorry, there's a lot of stuff here to unpack, but if you go back and look at our document in terms of running a scan, before, when you had to rerun a ROS bag, you kind of provided it a lot of parameters like replay speed and so on. Right now we've kind of simplified it, so we have a launch file that basically runs in post-processing mode, and then you just provided the ROS bag. So the SLAM setting is basically reading off your ini file with your parameters, and all you have to provide is the ROS bag and nothing else. So it kind of simplifies how you would run it. If you're using the same parameters all the time, then I would just go into the launch file and kind of modify. I'll just modify this line here to point to the .ini file you'll be using, and so in that case you wouldn't even need this. I already have it set up to that. So all I would need is ROS launch, the node, the launch file, and just the ROS bag. Okay. And then that's it. And then I'll just run through the entire ROS bag in post-processing mode. Okay. And I think that's it. Thank you. If you want more information, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to either Astor or Kudan. Just send us a note and kind of just say, refer somewhere that is a follow-up question to a webinar, and then we'll definitely get back to you with it. You should be getting a recording of, I think you'll be getting a link to a lot of the material so that you can go back and take a look. But yeah, that's it for me.
Yep, sounds good. You should have received all the materials, but if you registered for the webinar, a little bit later and didn't get a chance to take a look at all the files and stuff, we'll send a reminder, or we'll send another email with all the recordings and the files. So thank you for joining. And as Juan said, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to email Astor or Kudan side of things. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thanks.